Shalom. Today we're going to talk about the modern Hebrew word for mask. Seems to be in the news a bit lately. This word is masecha, and it does correspond to a biblical word. I learned this word masecha from a song that we sing at Purim.
חג פורים, חג פורים, חג גדול ליהודים, מסכות, רשנים, זמירות וריקודים.
Can you figure out what the song means? Chag Purim, the festival of Purim, it's a great holiday for children. Masks, noisemakers, songs, and dances. I wanted to find a more biblically correct photo from Israel, but the fact is that most of the photos from Israel of Purim look like this. Purim has become a holiday which is very much like Halloween. Several years ago, I was at an Orthodox kibbutz, and the little girl went out with her basket to collect candy, dressed as a witch. So the word masecha in Tanakh means something which is molten or a molten image. Exodus 32:4. And he received them at their hand and fashioned it with a graving tool, after he had made it a molten calf. And they said, These be thy gods, O Israel, which brought thee up out of the land of Egypt. We also say the golden calf, which it is referred to that in other places, but here it's called the molten calf, that's masecha. 2 Chronicles 28:2. For he walked in the ways of the kings of Israel, and made also molten images for Baalim. Here speaking of King Achaz. Now the word masecha is not used in the two repetitions of the Decalogue, of the 10 sayings, or the 10 commandments as they appear in Exodus or Deuteronomy, but it is used here among the curses and the blessings. Deuteronomy 27:15. Cursed be the man that maketh any graven image or molten image, masecha, an abomination unto Yahweh, the work of the hands of the craftsman, and putteth it in a secret place. And all the people shall answer and say, Amen. The word masecha comes from a verb root, nasach, which means to pour out. Genesis 35:14. And Jacob set up a pillar in the place where he talked with him, even a pillar of stone. And he poured a drink offering thereon, and he poured oil thereon. In 2 Samuel 23:16. And the three mighty men brake through the host of the Philistines, and drew water out of the well of Bethlehem that was by the gate, and took it, and brought it to David. Nevertheless he would not drink thereof, but poured it out unto Yahweh. So there's no negative connotation to the idea of just pouring something out. The problem comes when we pour it out and put it into a mold and make an image, which is an abomination towards YHWH. The mold is something which presses from the outside to make the shape of the item, and also we can make many, many of them that look exactly the same. As Yahweh gave the instructions for building the altar in Exodus 20:25, and if thou wilt make an altar of stone, thou shalt not build it of hewn stone, for if thou lift up thy tool upon it, thou hast polluted it. So he was looking for things that were naturally shaped, not molded. The molded thing for building becomes the brick, and it has negative connotations. Genesis 11:3. And they said to one another, Go to, let us make brick, and burn them thoroughly. And they had brick for stone, and slime they had for mortar, speaking of Nimrod building the tower. And again, in Isaiah 65:3, a people that provoketh me to anger continually to my face, that sacrificeth in gardens, and burneth incense upon altars of brick. These are frowned upon. Instead, we are to be molded from the inside. Romans 12:2. And be ye not conformed to this world, but be ye transformed by the renewing of your mind, that ye may prove what is that good and acceptable and perfect will of God. James 4:4. Ye adulterers and adulteresses, know ye not that friendship of the world is enmity with God? Whosoever therefore will be a friend of the world is the enemy of God. Philippians 1:6. Being confident of this very thing, that he which hath begun a good work in you will perform it until the day of Yeshua the Messiah. The work begins on the inside. Joel 2:13. And rend your heart, and not your garments, and turn unto Yahweh your God, for he is gracious and merciful, slow to anger, and of great kindness, and repenteth him of the evil. Again in Matthew 23:25-27. Woe unto you, scribes and Pharisees, hypocrites! For ye make clean the outside of the cup and of the platter, but within they are full of extortion and excess. Thou blind Pharisee, cleanse first that which is within the cup and platter, that the outside of them may be clean also. Woe unto you, scribes and Pharisees, hypocrites! For ye are like the whited sepulchres, which indeed appear beautiful outward, but are within full of dead men's bones, and of all uncleanness. This is kind of interesting. This group of people, who has been molded by a certain educational system, has chosen to look on the outside like a different group of people. I wonder why they chose these white coats. For the fine linen is the righteous deeds of the saints. And so we hear David's prayer in Psalm 51. Behold, thou desirest truth in the inward parts, and in the hidden part thou shalt make me to know wisdom. Create in me a clean heart, O God, and renew a right spirit within me. The word create there is bara. It is used only for God. Only God can create a clean heart inside of you. Going back to our word, masechah, as it appears in Tanakh, it can also mean veil or covering. Isaiah 25:7. And he will destroy in this mountain the face of the covering cast over all the people, and the veil that is spread over all nations. Isaiah 30, verse 1. Woe to the rebellious children, saith Yahweh, that take counsel, but not of me, that cover with a covering, but not of my spirit, that they may add sin to sin. Sometimes we cover ourselves because we are trying to hide our sin as if God cannot see it. But sometimes it is appropriate to cover ourselves. Leviticus 13:45. And the leper in whom the plague is, his clothes shall be rent, and his head bare, and he shall put a covering upon his upper lip, and shall cry, Unclean, unclean. In Micah 3:7. Then shall the seers be ashamed, and the diviners confounded. Yea, they shall all cover their lips, for there is no answer of God. Are these people lepers? Maybe they're just going to be treated like lepers. Maybe they have no word from God. There is another word, masach, which appears as a verb and a noun, and it has a related kind of meaning from the idea of being poured out. It can be mixed or mingled. Psalm 102:9. For I have eaten ashes like bread, and mingled my drink with weeping. Isaiah 19:14. Yahweh hath mingled a perverse spirit in the midst thereof, and they have caused Egypt to err in every work thereof, as a drunken man staggereth in his vomit. Psalm 75:8. For in the hand of Yahweh there is a cup, and the wine is red. It is full of mixture, and he poureth out of the same. But the dregs thereof, all the wicked of the earth shall wring them out, and drink them. Yahweh teaches us against mixture. Deuteronomy 22:9-11. Thou shalt not sow thy vineyard with diverse seeds, lest the fruit of thy seed which thou hast sown, and the fruit of thy vineyard be defiled. Thou shalt not plow with an ox and an ass together. Thou shalt not wear a garment of diverse sorts, as of woolen and linen together. So returning back to the molten image that Aaron made, Exodus 32:5, and when Aaron saw it, he built an altar before it, and Aaron made a proclamation and said, Tomorrow is a feast to Yahweh. This is a kind of mixture and mingling. If we wish to honor and obey Yahweh, then we must worship him in the manner that he tells us. To pour out a molten image is mixing and mingling. We cannot say that that image is Yahweh. He has told us not to make an image. We cannot mix his true worship with the lie of the molten image. There is another word which appears as masach. It comes from a different root, which is sachach, which is your root for sukkah, for a booth, a tabernacle, and it comes from the idea of covering. So we see this word masach. It's a homonym. It sounds the same as the other words, but it comes from a different root. Exodus 26:36. And thou shalt make a hanging for the door of the tent of blue and purple and scarlet and fine twined linen wrought with needlework. Numbers 4:5. And when the camp setteth forward, Aaron shall come and his sons, and they shall take down the covering veil and cover the ark of the testimony with it. In Psalm 105:39, he spread a cloud for a covering, and fire to give light in the night. Isaiah 22:8, and he discovered the covering of Judah, and thou didst look in that day to the armor of the house of the forest. There are times where covering is important. It is appropriate. I'm not trying to give you any direction concerning this. I'm just trying to bring you the word of the Lord. Ezekiel 33:10. Therefore, O thou son of man, speak unto the house of Israel. Thus he spake, saying, If our transgressions and our sins be upon us, and we pine away in them, how should we then live? How are we supposed to live in these days? From Romans 14:23, whatsoever is not of faith is sin. You must live according to your faith. James 1:27, pure religion and undefiled before God and the Father is this, to visit the fatherless and widows in their affliction, and to keep himself, that is yourself, unspotted from the world. Psalm 24:3-4. Who shall ascend into the hill of Yahweh, or who shall stand in his holy place? He that hath clean hands and a pure heart, who hath not lifted up his soul unto vanity, nor sworn deceitfully. And above all, let's remember in these times, 2 Timothy 1:7, for God hath not given us the spirit of fear, but of power, and of love, and of a sound mind. Always remember, tasim et ha'enayim al hashamayim, keep your eye on the sky, your redemption draweth nigh. Shalom.
Create in me a clean heart, O God. Let me be like you in all my ways. Give me your strength, teach me your song. Shelter me in the shadow of your wing. For we are your righteousness. If we die to ourselves and live through your death, we shall be born again to be blessed in your love. Create